Hello there beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. This time is the first time that I will be doing a digital speed painting video, and I think that's quite fitting for the excitement of this month, which is June, which means Pride Month. I really love this month for its theme because I just see so much beautiful and vibrant and rainbow colored art this month, and it just gives me so much joy, and I want to contribute to that by making my own little Pride Month drawing. And the way I went about this is how I usually do when coming up with ideas for drawing, is that I get help from you guys, or at least some of you guys. So I go on to Snapchat and I have laid out some sketches, which you will see here, and I need to figure out a pose. So I've sketched out these few poses and I send them off to some friends, and they will text back to me which poses or pose they like the most, and then I will give them numbers and figure out which ones have the most votes, and I will take that one. And the reason why I do this is not because I can't just pick one myself, but because I want to figure out what other people would like me to draw. So this is a fun way of doing it for me. And then after figuring out the pose, which is this one here, then I had to figure out, well, what sexuality would they be? Because I didn't want to just make them both the same sexuality or sexual orientation. So once again I asked, with the flags laid out, because not everyone knows the flags, and two people said the combination of bisexual and pansexual, which I really liked, and it was the one getting the most votes. But then I was like, but what gender are they supposed to be? And one of my friends said, oh, I would like to see them be gay. So I was like, okay, fine, they're gonna be male. So there are two guys, one being bisexual and one being pansexual. And this was the sketch I ended up with, which I brought into Photoshop, and that's where the speed paint starts. I hope you'll enjoy this one. After dragging the sketch into Photoshop, I start the outline. I use a specific brush, which is a pencil brush, which gives some of the texture of traditional drawing as well, which I really like and enjoy, because it feels more organic that way compared to the standard Photoshop brushes. There isn't really much to say about the outline in and of itself, because it is just tracing the underlying sketch, which I had beforehand as well. So that is basically what you're seeing me doing, and just refining some of the areas and cleaning up some of the frizziness of my sketch lines. And here I'm nearing the end of the outline part, and I'm going in with the colors for the flags and just figuring out the color scheme. So I just dragged in the flags from the internet to see the colors together, and then I filled out the people with one base color. This way it's easier for me to draw them, because then I don't go over the lines to the sides. Of course I'm still coloring in the inside, but I don't have to worry about going outside the lines into the background, and this is a really good way of doing it. And then I'm putting a clipping layer on top of it, where it just applies to the layer underneath. And here I'm going in with the base colors just to figure out what color scheme I want them to be. I knew the guy with the bisexual orientation would be white, and the guy being pansexual being black. So I wanted to balance out the colors as well, because one would be very dark toned in skin. So I wanted him to still have some lighter colors on him, so I made his trousers very light, and the white guy having very light top area, I wanted his legs and trousers to be darker, so it balanced out more with some light and dark on top and some light and dark on the bottom. And I think this worked out really well. Then I just go in refining more of the areas of the coloring, where I went over some of the areas because I don't want to be too neat in the beginning if I don't like the colors going together. So this is what you see me doing here, just refining some of the colored areas. And you see me sometimes switch back and forth between black and white, just like gray toning the entire drawing, and that's just to see the value of the entire drawing altogether, which gives me more of an insight into the balance of the piece, where the colors are not distracting. And I could see that my theory with having light and dark in both the bottom and the top went really well together. And here I'm going in with some light effects, and I use some layer effects on the colors to make it more cohesive, so I don't use different kinds of highlight for different colored areas. So using the same color for highlight and shadow brings the piece more together and makes it more cohesive. So I used a yellow for the highlight, and it's very good to have a complementary color for shadows. So I used a purple for the shadow, since on the color wheel yellow and purple are opposite of each other. And this is the point where the legs were bugging me real hard. I hope that putting on color would fix the bug, because their legs were too aligned and too symmetrical, and it just looked weird because it wasn't the same person's legs. It was just bugging me, so I had to change the position of the guy's leg to just break that symmetry and make it more asymmetrical. And after doing that, it just put my eye more at ease, and it just helped a bunch. So it was really annoying after just doing all the shading and coloring, but it was necessary, and it definitely, to my eyes, saved the piece. That just changing that leg just a tiny smidge just helped a lot. Don't be afraid to kill your darlings. So yeah, I had to just clean up the underlying base color layer, so that when going back to the colored layers, it was easy for me to just clean everything up. It's a little bit of a tedious process, just going over everything again, but it wasn't really that much of a struggle. It's just making sure that you shift through all layers and clean up everything. Overall, I really liked this piece. It was a really quick one for me. Like usually I would spend a lot more time on it, but I think the time spent on it really gave it its charm too, because you can still see a lot of the texture in it, and I just think it's very cute. At this point I was pretty happy with how they were turning out, and now I went on with the background, and I wanted to incorporate the rainbow flag just to add more of the pride vibe into the drawing. I once again used the more textured brush for this, which I also used for the shading on the people. And I really like this, and I also use this brush to fade in the corners and the sides, and it just gives more texture to the overall piece, which I really like, also because I'm used to traditional drawing more. And using textures really like helps give the drawing more visual interest as well. And I thought that I wanted them to have a white border around them, but I could very quickly see that I did not want that anyway, so that's why I erased it again. And then I just went up and cleaned up some of the flag as well, because there were some gaps in between which I hadn't noticed in the first place, so I was just cleaning up some of those areas. And you can see over to the left the amount of layers I'm using for such a simple drawing as well, but that's sometimes how I want to roll with things. Sometimes I use only 3 layers for a very highly detailed piece, and sometimes I use 17 layers. It's a mix, and I don't really know what I'm doing that much with my digital pieces. I'm still finding a flow with the different pieces I'm making. And if you were in doubt, I'm using my Cintiq 13HD from Wacom. And I really like it. I wish I could have a bigger tablet at some point, but right now this is really good for what I'm using it for and my needs. And here I just went in finishing up more shadows on the guys, and I wanted to add the pride onto the flag as well. And right now it was very tiny compared to what I wanted it to be. And I realized that writing 2020 under the pride and under my name did not work for me, so I deleted the date or year from the pride and added under my name, because that's usually how I do it. And then flipping the canvas, I could tell that there was some imbalance with it being at an angle, so I changed it to be horizontal. And then I made it bigger as well, because it was a little bit too small and hidden away. I also changed the background to be black, or I had a black version, so I both have a white and a black version, because I wanted to use this piece as my background picture on my computer. So I changed it to be a black version too, and I really like both of them, but the black just makes everything pop a little bit more of the colors. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope that you'll subscribe and all that good stuff.